Okay. The stream is broadcasting. The channel is live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Adventure on So Many Levels. We're going to play some Blades in the Dark.
Find the
Blades.
blades.
I am Christiana Ellis, and I am the Game Master. Our players tonight, Mark Kilfoyle as Nedry Shiny Rock, a.k.a. Indigo.
Plans within plans within plans within a really vague notion of what's going on.
Starla Hutchton as Primrose, or Lynn.
Hello, friends.
I should be probably consistent in terms of, the original name versus the alias. Should I say them in the right order? Or are the lines blurring? Are you forgetting who you were before?
Yes.
There is no Nedry, only Zool.
There's also Jenny Meltzer playing Zaylene, aka Nightshade.
Maybe I'm one of those people, but I've never really known.
And then, of course, we have Paul Fisher as Garland, aka Zinhorn.
One or the other, both together.
So, when last we left our heroes, they had rescued the suit of armor Valor, the magical talking suit of armor Valor, for their client, Curity Detweiler, who then shared with them what they had already begun to suspect, which is that she is, in fact, the long lost and now cursed paramour of the Pocket Protector's patron, Lord Yobert Relenth. The two of them are under a curse put on them by the Lady Despair that forces them to stay separated from one another across the plains, and each of them with a sort of figurative half of the other's heart, expressed as spirits. And so they are your new allies since you've helped them out, and they are very much interested in helping you save the world, which is what you said you need the diamond for. It's interesting, I think, just the nuance there, because certainly I think the world could potentially be endangered. But technically what you need the diamond for, that your plan is to open a tunnel into the place where the danger is. So, I mean, it's a little complicated, but we all know that your hearts are in the right place.
Sometimes you have to drill a tiny little hole into the bomb so that you can let the pressure out.
Yeah.
I believe they call it trepanation. I'm not sure it's recommended.
But in any case, what you have, your next objective is, you have been told, you asked Curity if there was ever going to be a way that she might be freed from this curse that she's under. And what she told you was that there is a big party happening in a few weeks. A gala held by the local fae here in the Moon-Shadowed Sea, called the Absolution Ball. And they play a game in this gala wherein someone in the Moon-Shadowed Sea has been chosen to wear this magical crown. While they are wearing it, it is invisible and shielded from divination magic. If they can manage to keep it and avoid being discovered and the crown taken from them for a full 24 hours, they win and get to keep it. And this crown can render someone, it can nullify any fae contracts that they are currently bound by. However, if anyone is able to find it, then you get the crown. And so that crown would certainly solve the problem. The only difficult part, well, okay, there are several difficult parts. Difficult part number one, the person who has it is going to be highly motivated to prevent anyone else from taking it. Difficult part number two, everybody else also wants it, and they're going to all be your competition. Difficult part number three, the Lady Despair uses her future-telling magical diamond to rig the game. So, your goal has been set before you, but it's a few weeks away, and so now is the time for you to start figuring out how are you going to try to even the odds somehow. This is a rigged game, so of course, if you play fair, you're going to lose. So, tell me, pocket protectors, or should I say, scare stoppers, a division of the Frighteneers, what do you want to do?
I think we come up with 20 different plans.
I don't think that's a good idea.
So-
that would be the pocket protector's way of approaching things.
If we were to
yeah.
execute all 20 plans simultaneously, however, it might serve some purpose.
I
Who won
think
it
it would
last year?
confuse her.
That's
It
a
would
good.
also confuse us.
That's a good question. I think that's the sort of thing that we would do a gather information roll to find out. The other piece that I'll remind you of too is that what we're looking for because we're playing Blades in the Dark and not D&D, what we're looking for is not for you to come up with every detail of the plan. What you're going to need to do is to choose the basic approach and decide and obtain some specific detail of it. And then what we do is we assume that you have made the rest of the plan, but we don't show it on camera. We just jump into the action, and that's where you can use things like if something starts to go wrong, you maybe have a flashback to, oh, here's where we prepared for this eventuality or whatever. And so that way we don't just end up in analysis paralysis, right? So that said, you can certainly do some gather information rolls to help you decide what sort of approach you think might be the best and decide what the details should be for how you're going to make that plan work. So if you need a reminder, the different approaches, you're choosing between assault, deception, stealth, occult, social, and transport. And so the idea is that when you're ready for the engagement roll, you will need to choose one of those, and each of those has a different detail required.
Seems like it might be social to find out who got it last time.
Oh, so in this case, if we're still just gathering information, we don't
Oh,
need to
okay.
choose. That is only when
That's
we're
for
ready
the
to say
overall plan.
we are beginning the plan, as opposed to we're still trying to get our bearings and decide what the plan will be.
So last week, Indigo said that he could walk around the gala and read people's minds, or maybe even read the mind of the Lady Despair and try and figure out who had the crown on.
Yes, as a long-term project, Indigo managed to sort of create a hybrid spell that combines detect thoughts with detect object, and essentially will give you a ping for someone who is thinking thoughts that only someone who is wearing the crown and trying to hide it would think. And the one other side effect of that is if and when it's not got an infinite range. Also, if and when it does give you that ping, the person that it is detecting will also know that has happened. And so, if they might try to get away, is the point there.
Right.
In that case, we could employ some of the tools that we were given by the Fae
Mhm.
before we came here. Like I could follow the trail, or Primrose could
Right.
look and see magical things. So, I mean, we do have a way to deal with that if that comes up.
I think you were also given a couple of other leads that you could potentially follow up on. There is someone known as Padraig the Lost Broker that Curity has told you has some sort of fate twisting power. It's a little unclear how it actually works, but he does seem to have some actual power. There is also the fact that it seems as though much of the Lady Despair's power comes from the fact that there is a Titan residing nearby, perhaps imprisoned nearby, or at least present against its will. And so, if that were to change, it would certainly change the dynamics of the setting pretty substantially. However, approaching it, even getting close, makes you more and more subject to its call, which is dangerous. So certainly doing something like gathering information. So if, for example, you wanted to just say, the plan is going to be, we're just going to go to the ball, just straight up. We're just going to attend it regular style because everybody's invited. And we're just going to walk around and hope we spot them. And if we do, we chase them down, right? Like, that is a perfectly legitimate approach. If that's what you were going to do, that would probably be social, right? Because essentially you're not doing anything underhanded. You're just showing up and basically trying to just figure it out, right?
Right.
But there are lots of potential options. So, for example, we could even just like role play this conversation. Ivy, kind of rather Paradise, comes to all of you and just says, "I've been thinking a bit about what we might want our approach to be, given that we have some time to do some prep work." For example, so it would seem as though simply playing the game straight, even if we think we have a way to play well, potentially plays into her hands. If I recall, there was we could do other things like try to arrange to know who is going to be selected in advance. After all, we don't have, if she's cheating already by using her future predicting diamond to predict who the victor will be and then choosing the wearer accordingly, perhaps if we also knew that information up front, we don't have to just figure it out there. If we could discover it, be present when they decide, or to bribe someone, or
I was actually going to suggest that because Curity mentioned that there was a council of people.
yes.
There may be someone that we can appeal to kind of get some insider information, but it'll probably cost us.
Well, to be sure, I would imagine we would not be the only person who's ever thought of such a thing. But then again, we do have substantial resources we could bring to bear.
What do we know that no one knows? Everybody knows this is rigged. Everybody will try the same things. What do we know that they don't know?
I suspect, based on what Curity told us, that the details of how her predictive abilities work are somewhat mysterious and not popularly understood. Curity, of course, knows much about it, as did Yobert, because they were shown its powers directly as a sort of punishment, but it doesn't seem as though everyone else knows the details. I think the Lady Despair seems to prefer it to be just understood that she seems to always know what's going to happen, but not the limits of her abilities.
Good.
That in itself is pretty valuable.
What if everybody thinks they know, but we know that they don't know? Useful.
Or if the selection process is rigged, what if we were to somehow rig it another way? If the person to wear the crown is selected some 24 hours before the game is to be played and won, Curity said that she seems to only be able to predict up until the point of victory. And so if she chooses who should wear the crown in order to produce that victory moment she's looking for, she won't necessarily know what's going to happen after that.
So if we could figure out who was supposed to win, we could approach that person and strike a bargain with them to give it to us.
Potentially, yes, although I'm sure that it's quite a prize, and so it would not be parted with easily. We were, of course, warned that any physical violence employed in this game is strictly against the rules and would lead someone to be disqualified.
What does despair win?
I'm not sure I understand what you mean.
What does she benefit from all of this? Like, what is the benefit to her?
Why rig a game? To win. What does she win?
It's a good question.
Well,
Why does she
that's-
give away something so valuable that could hurt her, but only to those who wouldn't? Something in this is about this place. Loss. Only by winning will that person lose everything. And only by letting herself lose something will despair win everything.
I dare say, just going based on the theme of the name, I would imagine that lots of people trying to win a thing and then failing, and then choosing the one person to win based on knowing that they will destroy themselves with it somehow, does seem to be rather on brand.
If everyone else thinks they've got it, then they will leave the person who has it alone.
You
No one can
actually
see
make
it.
people think that they have it?
Since they cannot see it, they may not know for themselves. Maybe they do not know what it means to wear this crown, but they would know what it means to wear a crown.
I thought Curity did say that they would be aware. The person wearing it is definitely aware that
Yes.
they have it.
So the arrangement, as she explained, just to sort of, remind everyone, is that the Council of Contracts and the Lady Despair is a member, meet to choose who will be the secret wearer. As the party begins, that person is selected and given the crown and told that they have to keep it all night. They can do anything they want with it, assuming that they stay in the moon-shadowed sea. Meaning, like, they could literally just, like, dig a hole and bury it if that's what they chose to do. Although, typically that's not what happens, because the person who is selected is kind of excited to play the game of it. And so, although it could be done that way, it has not typically been the approach used, because it doesn't seem fun. You know what I mean? And so, but in theory, that's not against the rules. It's only that it must stay within the moon-shadowed sea. If they can keep it without being discovered, then they win. If someone else finds it, they don't have to manage to, like, physically grapple it away from them, because that is too much of a potential for violence to break out, which nobody, claims to want. But you basically do have to say to them, you have the crown, and you have to be able to to touch it, essentially. And, like, it's invisible on their head, but if you can put your hand there, they'll feel it. You'll feel it. And
So
so
the ones who
essentially, you have
the
to,
crown,
yeah.
the ones who have the crown know. Those who do not seek the crown and are only told by their own experience that they have received it. But suppose I gave you the crown, told you that it was the crown, convinced you it was the crown. You now have the crown. Others will seek it from you.
There is
Then
just
others
one.
will look in the wrong place.
So while I'm not trying to. So essentially, it is not like if I found it in the first hour, then I have to hold on to it the rest of the night. It is, if someone finds it, they win. Period.
The game ends.
Yeah. Now the party continues, but in principle, what usually happens is if someone finds it, they choose to wear it no longer invisible, and they get everybody to kiss up to them at the party.
Even better. Then everybody will think the crown has been found and no longer look for it. Except the person who has it, who will say nothing because they have the crown. It will eliminate competition.
You're suggesting a fake distraction.
In part,
Is that
one plan.
So, before we go too far down the road of doing what I was just saying that we should avoid, like having the conversation is fine, but like I said, rather than getting to the point of plotting specific details, I think we can, anytime you feel like you're ready to jump into the engagement role, we can. But it sounded like there were some things that you wanted to find out first. For example, the finding out who won it last year. So the question that I would ask then to move into that gather information role is, what are you doing to find that out? Who are you asking? Where are you going?
Would Curity have known that?
I mean, probably. So she might just be able to tell you. I mean, we're going to do a roll, right? So you're going to get information based on the roll. But, I mean, she potentially would know some things, but she would also... Basically, I'm going to give you slightly different information depending on what your method is. You know? So there's also lots of other people that you could potentially talk to because, of course, once this party gets kicked off, pretty much everyone in the Moonshadowed Sea is going to be doing something about it.
So, would there be records of those who have been granted and those who have won? Would there be stories?
I suspect that the Council of Contracts, since they are the ones that choose the wearer, probably have records. I mean, I just hear the name Council of Contracts. It seems like the sort of place they would keep records.
And people who found it before might be of interest to figure out how they found it.
Has anyone actually found it, or has it just stayed with the person who it was given to?
No one succeeded.
Possibly.
Well, that sounds like a library kind of thing that maybe there's some kind of record of past winners and such.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And any deals or whatever that they absolved.
Yeah. So who would go and what's your approach? Would it be so like for example, it would be a different role if what we were doing is having Primrose go and sweet talk the person at the desk at the Council of Contracts versus something more academic of like I want to search through the records on my own. because one thing might be like you can search through all the records and find lists and tables and that sort of thing, but then another, like a person might not know all of those details, but they'll have some other insight, right? Like, so it all just kind of comes down to like, fiction first. Tell me what it is that your characters do, and we'll decide what the role is.
Well, we could all go and we could do both of those things.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
One of us could study the records.
I will study the
Primrose
records.
could do. I can help. So I have a good study too.
I'm
We
sure
can
they have
share
some
them.
kind of archivist or something that might want to chat because they don't get many visitors.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And you know, I
So,
could be your roadie and hold your instruments, and you could charm him with a performance, or her, them.
all right. So I'm gonna put us on the map here, and we're starting out with you all here in your little your topsy turvy shipwreck. But then as we move over to the shallows, where the Council of Contracts is, just showing this map because we haven't really spent much time in this area on this map. You can see where we are basically to the east of the shipwreck village, and there's lots of these little sort of shell houses, and this area is populated less by like the treasure hunters who have condensed, and more with the shallow fae of like fae creatures who live here. They have not come here from somewhere else. This is their home and where they live. But of course, we have this big palace, which is the Council of Contracts. And then I'm actually going to put us onto another map that shows a picture of what that building looks like from outside. Are you all seeing this? Yeah. Okay. And then we have, the interior maps as well, the different layers. So we don't, as before, we don't necessarily need to keep the tokens on the map because we're not doing, tactical combat here, but just for your nice visuals. So, you have made your way to the shallow. You see there are sea elves and mermaids and other such aquatic fae coming and going. Seems like there is business gets done over there at the Council of Contracts. Turn on my light. It's very bright. So, what do you do?
Go in and look for a directory or information.
Okay. I think as you enter, what you immediately face is the reception desk, where you see a where are my notes? I thought I had the right bit up here. Okay, there we go. Yes, so you see an azure skinned elf sitting behind this desk, who looks up at you, and as soon as she sees you, and my microphone stand just got moved by my dog. He's got his head up against it, and he stretched out, and it moved my whole microphone stand. This azure-skinned elf seems to be somewhat androgynous, but very sort of decorated. Lots of like coral jewelry and various little bits of like ribbon and things that are designed to kind of trail out and float around them in the water. But looks up and sees all of you, and just a big beaming smile, and says, Welcome to the Council of Contracts. You're new. I know you are. How can I help you?
Well, first of all, I just have to say, you look fabulous.
Oh, thank you. You know, it's the sort of thing that I believe if you put effort into your appearance, it just improves your attitude all day long. It's not even about the impression you have on others. It's more about the impression you have on yourself.
Oh, I completely agree. I especially love the little hair thing that you've got there. It's just absolutely charming.
She leans forward and she reaches up into her hair and she says, "It's actually fish." And she holds it and she's got a little fish with this little long like flowy fin that like she like detaches it from her head and it's like, "See?"
It's incredible. Well, um, my friends and I here were wondering. We've been hearing murmurings about this absolution gala that's coming up,
Oh,
and
yes.
hmm, well, we were kind of wondering um, if there's any kind of record of like past winners or anything like that. Any kind of information on it?
Oh, indeed. Yes, we keep elaborate records because, of course, we hold many fine galas and parties and balls here in the moon-shadowed sea. But the Absolution Ball is certainly one of the most well attended by such a diverse crowd. So many of our parties end up just being, the snooty sorts who only ever go to the fanciest parties, but the Absolution Ball is for everyone, and so everyone participates. It's wonderful. So, first, I believe we must introduce one another, yes? I am Kelstara Olena, and I am an outreach ambassador for the Court of Contracts. How do you do? And she holds her hand, or I say she. They hold their hand out like this.
Well, naturally, I would have to take said hand, brush just the lightest kiss across her knuckles, and it is a absolute pleasure to meet you. I'm Primrose, and these are my friends. I'll let them introduce themselves. I don't want to steal all of the. I'm just talking so much. I'm so sorry.
And so
I'm
she.
Garland. I- It's a pleasure to meet you. And I also love what you've done with your hair
Oh, thank
and
you.
the fish. They're fantastic.
I don't see too many dragonborn with wings. It's remarkable.
Yes, they're
What
wonderful. I stretch my wings out.
were they magically granted, or were you born with them?
I was born with them. Both of my parents had wings.
Wonderful.
I mean, it's not super duper rare, but you know, um, I don't know, maybe 1 in 10, one in 20, somewhere in there, have wings.
This is one of the best parts of this job is all of the many and varied people I get to meet.
Kind of hard flying underwater, though.
I would imagine so. The drag, you see.
Which is
Lots of drag.
probably why they don't get too many dragonborn with wings down here.
Yeah,
And so who are your friends here? You all came, right?
I am
Yes.
Indigo. You present interesting possibilities. Is the kissing part of the protocol?
Well, and she they kind of come they're behind a desk, which I would imagine makes it a little awkward. Like you would have to stand a little ways back from the desk in order to see over it, I would
He
guess.
probably would try to swim up just a little bit.
Okay, yeah. So remember that you can't really stay floating, right? Like you
Right,
could
right.
struggle and kind of get up, but then you'd sink back down. But I think what they do is they sort of they come out from around from behind the desk and then sort of kneel down and say, "My dear, I would be honored." She holds out. I keep saying she. They hold out their hand. You're not sure. They seem androgynous.
And I think Indigo's head kind of tilts as he's analyzing the situation and trying to figure out the approaches, and it just sort of ends up with his head bonking into her hand.
I've never really done this, so I hope this was appropriate.
You know what? It's fine. Everyone has their own way of doing things. As I mentioned, part of the wonderful part of this job, the reason it calls to me is meeting all different sorts, and of course that's why we need the Council of Contracts, because when we have beings from all over the many planes all coming here together, they need to work with one another, and how else are we to come to common ground if not through the beautiful language of contracts?
Was this a contract? Are we now wed? How does this work?
Oh, no, this is just a greeting. In fact, actually, if you are interested in the language, they grab a little, like, propped up stand from the desk and say, I do have this for you to peruse if you are so inclined. And it's basically like a page worth of not super fine print, but, you know, like, it's a full page worth of, say, like 12-point type that seems to be contract language. But the title of it is Services for Newcomers.
Thank you. I will analyze this.
I think as you skim it, it basically just amounts to the Council of Contracts swears that they will not they will not enter into a binding contract with anyone unless it is very clear to all parties that that is happening.
Interesting. Thank you. Helpful.
And you, my dear.
My name's Nightshade.
Ooh.
And I'll hold out my hand so that they can kiss it.
They do.
Thank you. You're very kind.
So it is so lovely to meet with you all, and I am so glad that you have come here today. Certainly records on the Absolution Ball is one of the many services we could provide. I am happy to help you to look up anything that you may need. But also, I would just suggest that if you are new to the area, we offer some orientation courses that might help you to avoid some of the more common pitfalls that befall beings coming from other planes traveling to the Feywild for the first time. Also, if you end up in any sticky situations, having accidentally made some promise or other that you did not intend, we can examine the contract and perhaps find ways to either, resolve it or live with it as may need be. That is, of course, a service that we provide here in the Moonshadowed Sea.
Very interesting.
Well, I think my friends here, especially, they absolutely love books. And a point specifically to
Indigo,
yes.
that guy.
Seemed like you forgot your friend's name there for a second.
Oh, that does tend to happen sometimes. I'm unfortunately not great with names, but I love people.
I
I
understand.
can completely relate to how you just enjoy just meeting all sorts of new people. It's one of my favorite things.
And it is very common when anyone from outside the Feywild comes to the moon-shadowed sea for the first time, it can be very overwhelming. There's so much going on, of course, and so being a bit disoriented is par for the course, which is a metaphor that relates to a sport that you might be familiar with and wouldn't realize that we have here, but we in fact do.
That is fascinating.
Sports ball?
That's exactly
know-
what we call it.
While my friends take a look at those records, I would love to chat with you some more about just things around here. There's just so much to know and see, and it's all
Certainly.
just incredible.
Wonderful. All right. Yeah. So, I think I'm having the hardest time with that for some reason. I think yeah. Okay. Doesn't matter. They are they, them is what they are. And so they guide Indigo, over to, I think there are little hallways that go into the rock wall behind the main part of this building, and some basements, and they lead you to a place where there are a number of books kind of sorted, and they gesture to a couple of big thick volumes and say, "These are our most recent records. I hope that you find what you're looking for, and good luck at the absolution ball."
Thank you. Books, wonderful.
And there's like a little sort of like reading table with some chairs that set up there, and they're bioluminescent coral, kind of glowing to provide some light. So I would assume Indigo is doing that. Is anyone else helping with the with that part of it, or?
I'll help. Yeah.
Mhm.
I realize that I have nothing to offer Lynn Primrose in the way of help.
Well, so is it basically everyone's going to study the records and leave Lynn to the?
No, I'll stay with her.
Okay. All right. So,
All right.
we have Garland and Indigo beginning their study of the records themselves. So I think this would certainly, I would expect it to be a survey role, or rather study. I mean, duh. And my guess is that Indigo would be making that, but it would be something where. You know what? I'm trying to remember. What we said with the gather information is that you could potentially assist with those, but it would also be, potentially using stress even before you're kind of at the job. So because the gather information roles are not really, there's not stakes. It's mostly just about how much information you get. It would be up to you to decide if you want to do assisting or not.
I do.
Okay. All right. So, I would assume then, Indigo, that you're going to do a study roll.
Okay. And is that assistance with it's one extra?
Yeah, one extra die, one bonus die.
This is controlled, I'm assuming. Or maybe it's a fortune roll.
It's a fortune roll.
And standard effect.
Mm-hmm.
One extra die.
And then you mark one stress for assisting Garland.
Okay.
Okay. And if I had the dice log up. Okay, 3 4s and a 3. 4, 4, 4, 3. So, with a 4, get to my my page here. I've been flipping around, but between so many different different pages. Okay, I can just search here. Gathering information. So, each attempt to gather information takes time. You can potentially gather more. Investigation can be a long-term project that you work on during downtime. And you know what? I think go ahead and we'll let you keep that extra die. But I'm looking at this now, and I'm thinking that I'm not sure. These are just fortune rolls, which I don't know if you. Yeah, I think it looks like the fortune roll is not intended to be something that you help with, because it's supposed to really more be a reflection of what the world is providing to you, as opposed to how well you're doing. So in any case, what I would say is we're not going to change the result, but go ahead and take your stress back, Garland. But I think what we're going to do is we can work within the fiction that anyone's there or helping, but mechanically we're not going to do the assist action, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So in any case, you got a 4, which is mixed result. Oh, you know what? Actually, I'm looking at the fortune roll thing right there, and it just says plus 1d for each major advantage, and -1 for any major disadvantage. So in this case, I would say having a colleague look at them with you is a major advantage, and so that's why you got the extra die. But it does not cost you stress, Garland. So that's the answer mechanically. But you got a 4. So I think what you find is that there is, well, so I guess specifically you were looking for like who was the winner last time, right?
Well, if there's a roll of other winners, it's like a list, or if it's just the last one noted, yeah. That's
what you find, I think, first that kind of complicates this and makes it a little bit harder to get as much as you were wanting is that they actually capture so much information that you really kind of have to, like, a lot of it feels like trivial and unimportant, and you're really having to sift through to find the nuggets of pieces that seem useful, right? And so they're capturing all sorts of things like a full log of all of the things that happened at the party, including attendance of nobles and lots of, you know, what sorts of appetizers they were serving at the ball, and some of the more notable incidents of people trying or failing to find the crown. And so there's like lots of information there, but it is just filled with a lot of sort of superfluous detail and flowery language in the record keeping, because they apparently think all that stuff is important. But what you find is that there is the last winner was, let's see. Yeah, the last winner was a human named Deneth, who had a whole bunch of different contracts on them. And there is a whole list of, you know, all of the ones that they had nullified. And a lot of them, reading through this list, you can't help but think that this guy Deneth must have been kind of an easy mark, because there were lots and lots of trivial, kind of just silly things that are not clear why anyone would have agreed to it, or somehow he got tricked. But just a lot of them are just things like, whenever you say your name, you have to put your hand on your head. And anytime you put on your shoes, you have to wear them on the wrong feet. And you have to wear your clothes inside out. And anytime you eat, you have to put half of whatever you've ordered on the floor. And stuff like that. Just really silly, like, sort of fey tricks sort of things. but there's just literally like dozens of those. And apparently, by finding the crown, he did manage to nullify those. It's, the record is here's all of these contracts that were nullified. But also, like, just some of those, you can't help but look at this really long list and say, how did this one guy end up with all of those to begin with?
And are they with different people, or is there
Yeah,
consistent
they're
names coming up?
basic. Yeah, no, they're basically all. Each one of them seems to be registered to a different name. They all look vaguely like Fey names.
What this town needs is an editor.
You also note that as far as you can tell, based on the description here, the way that he ended up finding the crown sounds like dumb luck. But I think as you're reading it, you're reading around the edges and feeling like you suspect there's more to it than that. But the way that it is written, like the accounting of him finding it, is literally that he tripped backwards and fell down some stairs and landed on the person who had it with his hands on it. And so, like, as he's going to try to sit up from falling down the stairs onto this person, they had the crown, and that's how he got it.
Strange.
Can I interject something here real quick?
Yeah.
I was looking at the gathering information,
Mm-hmm.
and you can do either a fortune roll or an action roll.
Oh, okay.
So, like, if he wanted to study ancient and obscure books to discover an arcane secret, he could use study
Okay.
instead. So, I was looking through it
Mm-hmm.
just because I was trying to find it, because I like to know what we're doing and like how to
Yeah. Well,
follow along. And like right above that were the fortune rolls for just general fortune roll.
yeah.
And
So
that's where that
for
says
fortune
that.
roll, yeah, it says when you make a fortune roll, you may assess any trait rating to determine the dice pool. And so that's what we did. Is we used
Right.
his study pool.
But if there's an obstacle, that's where an action roll instead of a fortune roll. That's
Right.
okay.
Yeah, and like you could, I don't know, it's just different. Like if you
Oh,
wanted to
so-
command somebody to give you information, you don't have
Right.
to make a fortune roll. You could use your command skill.
Oh, I see. So for the fortune roll versus gathering information roll.
Uh-huh.
Basically,
Okay,
there's a
yeah.
risk versus the reward.
Yeah. So I
There's
think
no risk; it's fortune.
yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking here. Is that there's not really any risk. This information is publicly available, more or less. It's just kind of. So I was kind of thinking that there wasn't necessarily a risk, but I think that's a good point of, we did it as a fortune roll based on your study trait.
Yeah. Or you can bust heads.
Yeah.
It's equal opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So you got standard result. You get good details, clarifying and follow-up questions are possible. So the records that you see here do say he got the crown. He did nullify those contracts. It does not have any information about what happened to him afterwards.
Is there a general notion that the crown is returned once used, or do they wear it for a year?
Yes, traditionally it is handed over at a specific ceremony when the time comes, but they have the ability to magically recall it if someone tries to keep it.
Is there any information about the person the crown was taken from?
Yes, so it does have that. I think that there's less detail there. It mostly, well, you know what? I think that you find that you have to start flipping. So the only reason I'm prevaricating here is that you didn't get like a full success. So what I'll suggest here is that it does mention them, and it does suggest that they really just thought that they were slick enough that they could just walk around the party with it on and not have to do anything unusual. But when you try to find out any more about them, it seems like it's in a different volume, and and it would be difficult to find more information in the amount of time that we've kind of set for this.
It might be better, Garland, if we end up asking Deneth themselves.
Okay. I
They
guess.
might know more than was written down, although I'm not exactly sure how, because it feels like everything was written down.
Hmm.
I would definitely fail them for this essay. I never really had that privilege, but it was one that was dangled in front of me from time to time.
So, in the meantime, we have Primrose and Nightshade up there back in the reception area with Kelstara. So,
So, were you at the gala last year?
oh, of course I go all the. I always attend. I am a frequent attendee of most of the galas that we hold here at the Court of Contracts. But of course, the Absolution Ball is the one that everyone goes to.
Well, I didn't want to make any assumptions, but so aside from the big obvious thing that happened, was there any other good gossip? Any like what were people wearing? Like any like slip ups or gaffes or I don't know. I guess I'm just looking for any. I love stories, so if you have any interesting stories, I'd love to know more just about it and what to look out for.
Sure. So I think that that's going to be a sway roll. I think if you want an advantage for having Nightshade there, she's going to have to contribute something.
Okay.
I mean, I have 3 in it.
Yeah,
So yeah.
But we want to get some good information, so I will stress myself out and give you an extra die.
Okay. Well, I think as we had just the way that we just did it for the study is that by being there to help, that counts as a major advantage. But you have to explain to me in the fiction why your presence constitutes a major advantage. If that happens, she gets the extra die. You don't have to mark stress. But you have to explain how in the fiction you're there. Because it's one thing for Garland to also be reading through the records helping Indigo. But if you want to be a major advantage to what Lynn's doing, you need to show me how you're being an advantage.
Well, if I could point something out, it's that Nightshade often has a really good insight on what questions to ask.
That's not an in character. That's a player to player. I'm asking you. Is
Well,
that what you're saying to Kelstara?
Nightshade. Well, no.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
just saying
so that's
Nightshade in general.
yeah. No, I know. I'm just saying. Let's role play the scene in such a way that I buy that Nightshade is being a major advantage to this effort.
I would lean in to try to prompt her a little bit and be like, the good little gossip. And that's my contribution.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
All the good gossip.
Sure. Well, fortunately, you've got an easy mark here in Kelstara because she loves to gossip. So go ahead and roll your sway, and you can have a bonus die for Nightshade. Being there to make it not just a one-on-one, but like girls talk, sort of thing.
Standard effect.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, you got a 6, which means you get exceptional details. The information is complete, and follow-up questions may expand into related areas or reveal more than you hoped for. It's like, well, so I guess, I mean, there's so much, right? And I don't know what you know already, right? But there's wonderful, so honestly, the thing that's kind of the biggest buzz right now is that they're talking about making this year's Absolution Ball, a masquerade, which is kind of crazy because everyone's going to be there and mostly you're going to know who's who anyway. But they're just talking about adding masks as kind of just a an extra this year, and I'm not opposed to a masquerade. Many of our best balls are masquerades, but it feels as though this was a sudden change, and it was the Lady Despair's suggestion.
Very interesting. I wonder if she likes a good accessory as much as I do.
Well, she is always to die for in these galas. You know, I don't know her very well personally, but she is always striking whenever she puts in an appearance. And I can only, it is one of those things where so many of the people who attend these galas do so. It's a big part of it that you are there to be seen. You are there to make an impression, to put in an appearance, and to be seen there at the gala. And
Why?
so, to make it a masquerade makes me curious. Is the intent that the masquerade is just a bit of extra fun, or are people actually trying to disguise their identities?
Has there been any rumors or gossip about that?
Well, I
Like,
mean,
what is the buzz about it?
well, there's just so essentially the way it went down, as I understand it, I'm not on the formal council, you understand, but I was there when they came out of the meeting, and it did seem as though everyone was kind of abuzz about just the excitement of it being an interesting new wrinkle, and I expect because it's so new that there will be lots of different people handling it differently. You know, there will be some who actually try to disguise themselves and some who will just put on a little domino mask or something like that. But the idea that the Lady Despair just suggested this out of nowhere when we have never made the Absolution Ball a masquerade before, I think what I got the impression is that everyone was interested in how does this thematically change the idea of the absolution ball. Do you grant absolution? Does the one who has just won the absolution ball, must they unmask? Do they unmask the person who was bearing the crown? Or what are the rules? And all of this is just up in the air right now, and my understanding is that they're still working out the details. But that's what everyone is buzzing about right at the moment.
Well,
They'll have it all
seems to me
sorted out
that it
before.
would, if I were to hazard just any kind of guess, I would think, well, because nobody knows who has the crown except the person who has the crown. Is that right?
Well, the council knows. They select the person.
But everyone else, they'll all be looking for the crown, and there are different people can read faces, like maybe it's to help, disguise if you have to tell a lie or something like that. Just makes it more difficult. Maybe they want to make the gala last longer and drag it out, or make sure that the game isn't over too soon.
I wonder if that might in fact be it. Now, we have not typically, in my own thinking of it, we've not typically had too much of a difficulty with the crown being found too soon. It's usually something that takes most of the night, and of course the party continues regardless, so it is not usually something where one must keep the game going in order for the party to continue. But adding an extra degree of difficulty to the challenge may be part of what they have had in mind. But it's also a bit surprising. This is why it's so unexpected, because it was never a problem before. So why the change? I wonder if she's merely gotten bored with the old way we did it, which seems crazy to me, but I wouldn't want to say so to the Lady Despair, you understand. But
How many of these have they done? Like, I mean, if they've done just, hundreds and hundreds of them, maybe
yes.
just add something new to it. And
Yes,
and
perhaps.
I don't know.
I just can't help but wonder what sparked the idea. I mean, I can't presume to understand what goes on inside the Lady Despair's head. She is quite inscrutable when she wishes to be. But it does seem rather sudden to bring it up. But of course, the rest of the council went along with it. But I wonder what changed.
It's very interesting. So, were you there last year when the crown was found?
I was. It was such a funny little clumsy mess. Usually, so often these things can be kind of stodgy if you have someone who is. There have been winners who just stood there in the center of the room all night, thinking, and then all of a sudden they just say, "You," and then they point at the person and they're right, and it's like it's impressive, I suppose, but there's no drama to it. There's no theatrics. And even though this one was over in a moment, and such a benighted soul, such as this poor human, just tumbles down the stairs and comes up with it. It was remarkable.
That is such a funny story. So, he literally just fell into it?
I mean, that's what it seems to me. If there was more to it, I wouldn't know. But honestly, if you had seen this poor man, I don't know that he had it in him to do anything much more complicated than fall down the stairs. I don't mean to be dismissive. The poor soul was sadly, dramatically in need of our guidance, and yet turned us away at every opportunity. I don't understand why he allowed himself to be pranked and put upon by so many different individuals when we offered our assistance and he denied it to us. We can only offer. We can't force anyone to accept our help. But this poor soul had gotten himself tied into so many knots, and then he wins the crown to cut himself free, and wouldn't you know it, the very next day he's gotten himself tangled again.
That's very strange. So, is the winner required to stay here then?
Like,
well, I mean,
the crown
think-
cannot be removed from the moon-shadowed
Well,
sea. If
well,
one wishes
yes.
to maintain possession of the crown, they also must stay in the moon-shadowed sea. Now, if someone wishes to leave, they of course can, but they must surrender the crown before they go.
well, it's just, I mean, if he'd entangled himself in so many things and managed to get free, that does make me wonder why he wouldn't be like, okay, I'm gonna cut my losses and go once he was free.
Oh, you know how it is when you gamble.
I suspect that was something to it. This poor man has just some sort of a compulsion. I suspect he just finds himself unable to resist. I don't know what goes on in his head, but it does not seem a pleasing existence to me. But I do try not to judge, and yet.
Is that a common characteristic of many of the winners?
Well, no, not precisely. Although I would probably venture to say that frequently, although the crown is of course an extraordinarily powerful and magical thing, and could be a great boon to someone who is suffering under the terms of a poorly thought out contract, but it is true that it does. There are many who are not able to make use of it as effectively as might be desired. Of course, so often people nullify whatever contracts that they are in, but then find themselves feeling adrift, and they don't know what to do next. And as a result, they make poor decisions subsequent to winning.
So, the last winner he's still around?
Well, I can't say I've seen him recently. He doesn't come here, after all. But I do know that even once he surrendered the crown, he went up to the surface, and I suspect we all expected that he must have been planning to take a ship, but then he was right there back in the treasure piles the next day.
Huh. Oh, very interesting.
Hmm.
He must be looking for something very important.
I was just going to say that.
Perhaps that's it.
So how long does a person keep the crown before they have to give it back?
In principle, they are permitted to be the bearer of the crown until the next absolution ball, which is 7 months. So quite some time. However, for most, the other abilities that the crown possesses are not necessarily of interest. Most who win it are simply in desiring of either the glory of the victory itself, or simply to nullify whatever existing contracts they have and to move forward. And so once they have nullified them, they often voluntarily surrender the crown back to the council. However, if they wish, if they so desire, they may possess it until the next ball.
And now, does that mean that they could make other contracts in that time period and then use them to use the crown to?
Well, in principle, they could, although it would be a foolish sort who chose to enter into a contract with someone currently wearing the crown.
Yeah.
You said it had other abilities? I didn't know it had other things it could do.
Oh, well, of course, it has the abilities that make it so fun as part of the game. Its ability to turn invisible, its shielding it from, scrying type magics, locating spells and that sort of thing. But it is also said that it contains the power to understand the Titan's call, which I've never worn the crown myself, so I don't know precisely how that's expressed. I've only spoken with people wearing it who seem that they take it in different ways. Some seem pleased by the experience and some don't. And the call is, of course, a very serious subject. If you all have you are familiar with the concept, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Good. I suspect.
I can hear it now.
Do be careful. It does
I
tend to
hear
be
it a lot.
progressive. Well, do be careful.
All the time.
You may wish to make sure that you remain in constant communication. She looks to you, Primrose, and says, do keep an eye on her. It does once people start hearing the call, it can progress, and often some people will just discover one morning that their colleagues have just wandered off.
Is there any way to protect oneself from that here? I mean, I know it's common, but I mean, has anybody experimented with the protection from that?
There are some who seem to just be more naturally resistant, but by far the best means of protection is to just stay far away from the Titan if you can. But the call is experienced, as I understand it, as sort of just a general longing. You tend to see it with people when people try to explain what they're feeling. Mostly, what they become convinced, and cannot be talked out of the idea that they need something that is down there by the Titan, and so they must go there to get it. However, in many cases, by the time they have proceeded further and deeper toward the Titan, the call has only grown stronger, and in many cases they do not return. That is the danger of the call, after all.
So, I don't want to make any assumptions, but have you given any thought to what you're going to wear this year?
Oh, have I? I've got a portfolio. And they grab this notebook from behind the desk, and they've got all sorts of like little fashion plate like ideas of like little sketched outfits. So
All
I
done
think
in waterproof crayon.
I was going to say colored pencils, but sure, yeah. But yeah, I'm envisioning a very specific toy from when I was a kid that was a colored
Yes.
pencil
I know
set.
exactly what you're talking about.
Anyway, I think that's perhaps a good bit to kind of end that scene on. But certainly you got some information there. Um, the idea that perhaps this Deneth is someone might be worth looking up.
Worth talking to you.
Mm.
I would also like to, as part of a gathering information, I don't know if anybody would want to help me with this, but I would actually like to look into whether or not there is a cult of the Titan
Mm-hmm.
in the city.
Okay.
Because there have to be people who like worship it. And it might be interesting to get their perspective.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that you feel certain that there must be, but for details, that's what we would do roll for.
Yeah.
So, what do you do in the fiction to follow that thread?
I think I would probably start talking to shady religious people, like those kind of people who hang out in alleys, maybe spreading the word that I'm looking for other people
Mm-hmm.
who are like-minded to, share ideas with.
Yeah. So, I think that just initially, you do run into a lot of people who just kind of look at you with pity, like they just assume that you're like, oh, you're hearing the call, you must be pretty far gone if you're already talking more about the Titan and wanting to do anything that involves like actually going closer to it on purpose. And so you get a lot of people who really kind of just like as soon as you bring it up, they just don't want to talk to you anymore. But that's not to say you don't get anywhere. So I think probably this sounds like a consort to me. If you're just
Okay.
like just trying to
was actually
feel out
gonna
people who
ask-
might be of similar mind.
if I could do a fortune roll and use resolve, like just sort of employ all of those tactics, like use my magical abilities and
Well, so what you described sounded more like consort to me, but I feel like a resolve roll. Well, here, let me look at your sheet. So a resolve roll would be 3, which would be the same as if you were doing attune, right, or command for that matter. I feel like I would take an attune roll more than a resolve roll, if that makes
Okay.
sense. But to some extent, a resolve roll would be. I'm going to make you also do one of those as part of what you're gathering information because you are playing with fire here. I think you understand,
Yeah.
right? And so here's a question too. Are you enlisting your companions in this search or are you kind of just doing it on your own?
I will tell them what I'm doing, and if anyone would like to go with me, they are welcome to.
Well, I'm
I-
gonna go with her because I'm not leaving her by herself.
Yeah,
To go
same
hang out with the
Especially-
Titan.
Yeah, especially given what she's asking about.
Yeah.
I
And
would
my
love to know more about the
obsession.
magic of the Titan, which
Well-
would be part of the cult.
I think part of what might play into this whole thing too is that as you know the days are going by and you check in with your gang of skulks, you realize you discover that the guy who had seemed to be like most in charge of all of that he went by Sorensen and his buddies say he just wandered off and they think he heard the call and he's as far as they can tell he's gone.
Mm.
So I
He
think
could use that as a front
like you're looking
to
for him.
ask, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually use that to be like, well, do you know if there are any other people who sort of gather?
Or even just for that matter, maybe we can say that this is an attune roll based on the idea that someone you knew has felt this pull. So maybe you can use that to kind of try to find where they went. Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Sure.
All right. So that is,
So I'm going to say that fictionally, if Garland and Primrose are with you, that's helpful as far as preventing you from just wandering off. But there's not going to be an advantage for the attune roll because that's really.
Well, what about Indigo?
Oh, well, I guess are you also
Because-
trying?
yeah, they were all
Yeah,
going.
because
Okay, sure.
it's about the Titan's magic, which you
Yeah.
wants to
Okay.
know
No.
more
That
about.
makes sense too. Then. So yeah, I'll say that either of you can roll it with a major advantage die. Then.
Is that a fortune roll or
Um,
risky?
Yeah, no, I'm going to do a
A separate fortune roll?
you know what? How
Or a
about
group
this?
roll.
I was going to make you do a separate resistance roll, but let's just go ahead and do it then as a risky roll.
Okay.
Yeah.
For an attune, you said.
Yeah, risky standard.
And does that
Okay.
mean I need the stress to assist in this case?
Um n- um like sometimes these different mechanics it's not always clear. I'm going to say no, but the risk if there is a consequence it affects both of you though.
Okay. So I get a bonus die, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, here we go. Looking for the Titan.
Okay, so that's a 6, which means that you got you do it. So I think that knowing Sorensen as you did, you're able to kind of follow his psychic trail, so to speak. And I think in some ways, perhaps Indigo's new spell helps with that a little bit because it allows you to kind of just like use the detect thoughts more as a locate object type of thing, like sort of like a locate creature, but it's also like detecting specific thoughts and figuring out what those thoughts are and following down there and
I call it a mental detector.
I will also wear my boot too,
okay.
so that once we do pick up the trail, I can follow it.
Okay. So here's what you discover more or less, relatively quickly is that he has definitely gone past the vents that where's the furthest sort of down you've been. And not like down into the vents, but like otherwise it still sort of slopes down. There's a kelp forest beyond where the vents are. And you understand that that is where the Lady Despair is said to reside. And then it keeps going deeper than that. And it's clear that he, at very least, has gone into the kelp forest. And so, So I guess the question is your ability to kind of trail after him and find where he's gone is leading you to a place that you suspect is increasingly dangerous. So right now, just doing this has not exposed you to any like actual danger so far, but it is guiding you to a place that might have its own dangers. So the question is that you now know, you believe you know where he went. Not just past the kelp forest, but you feel like there's a place that he has gone to, and that's where he is. But going there yourself is potentially dangerous. So that's, I guess, the question. Is knowing that there is a place that he went, and there does seem to be a location. It's not just aimless wandering. but that I don't want to undersell that, especially you feeling the call already, like it gets stronger when you go further.
Hmm. I feel like the character would want to go,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think that Primrose would let her.
Yeah.
And I don't think that, like, once she started to pull her away, that she would actually resist. She'd just be
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what haunts her.
Mm-hmm.
And
And to be clear, if you hadn't brought everyone with you, if Nightshade was on her own, I would be making you make a roll to not continue going.
Threshold, precipice, edge of
but
beyond.
but it's there.
Yeah.
Others feel this.
Yes.
We can intercept. Ask.
I think we need to talk to that guy. I mean, they said that people who have worn it can understand the Titan's call.
Well,
Then let's go look for him.
yeah, they said people have different experiences with it, but it's definitely worth investigating. So, if we're gonna find him, I think he would probably be in the piles.
That is
Yeah.
where Kelstara said that they went. So, um, so I think that so I think that is that where you're kind of going next. So I think then the the piles is where there's kind of a lot of activity, right? Because as as was described in the Roll for Shoes episode, but we haven't spent a lot of time there with the main cast. There are these enormous piles of junk, and in this area, new things tend to just sort of appear towards the surface and drift down, apparently randomly, but they are sorted into these enormous towering piles of junk by these strange little creatures that you've been told are called claspids. That they're just sort of like a little bit like a nautilus sort of thing, but bigger, like the size of a small dog, maybe. But they have little tentacle things and a little curly shell but what they do is they just anything that has sort of just settled onto the floor somewhere between the piles, they will pick it up and find a spot where it can go onto one of the piles, and they just sort of do this. And as far as anyone can tell, it's not it's or I'll say it's not obvious to you why they do that, but it seems like there's a fair amount of them, and they are often kept busy because treasure hunters are often digging through the piles and disrupting it, and the classmates have to work to kind of try to put it back. And they don't interfere, like, they don't seem to ever like attack anybody, but just as soon as something is left unattended, it'll get put back in a pile. But so this is also just where most of the people who have come here to look for junk are usually in this area. And there are, in fact, some places where, like, hollows have been carved out under some of the piles to make sort of like common areas and meeting rooms. And there's even some food stalls down there.
Well, maybe the area with the food stalls might be a good place to ask if anybody has seen him.
He would likely be famous. Or infamous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Probably. I wonder if anybody would want to know why we want to find him. So if they do, ask us that, we could just say that we found something that belongs to him, and I can give him one of these fairy trinkets that I brought with me, and just be like, I found this, and somebody said it belonged to you. Like, we'll just make something up.
Okay.
I mean, that's a good reason as any.
Yeah, and I mean,
He
he
is
seems like
here.
somebody who is here looking for stuff, so
Mm.
that might actually persuade him to talk to us a little bit easier.
Hmm.
So there are lots of people around. There's people doing stuff. So someone tell me what your character does, and we'll figure out if there's a role there.
You're good at talking.
There was no physical
You.
description in the notes that
Uh,
Indigo read.
it really only said that he was human, but it also described him as having a lot of sort of miscellaneous weird sort of contracts. So, and
I think, again, kind of wanting to figure out the magic of this place, I think Indigo would step back and just sort of watch people and try to sense the level of obligation they have.
okay,
Because
okay.
if his pattern is to get all of these contracts wrapped around him, maybe that would show in the magic of this place.
Mm-hmm.
So that'd be his
Um,
attempt.
Let's see. I guess I'd probably just pick a food stall, one that looked like it had maybe been here a while,
Mm-hmm.
and go ask the proprietor.
Okay. So we'll do a couple there. So let's have well. So again, actually, I'm gonna just briefly offer Garland. Do you want to do something just because you haven't made your roles yet?
Yeah, I haven't really had anyone to intimidate
I
or
mean,
command. I mean, it seems
Eh,
kind of rude.
it's okay if you want to
Um,
just tag along. I just wanted to make sure you felt like you had the opportunity.
You can just start coming up to people saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, do you know where this guy is? Tell
Yeah.
me now."
Yeah, you can command people.
all right, I'm gonna try and command somebody to tell me where this guy is.
Okay. You're just going to basically, like, because you don't even have to be, like, aggressive. You can just kind of have the demeanor of, like, hey, man, if you know, you should tell me. That sort of thing, right? So, you want to make a command roll?
Sure.
Is that kind of your approach? If you see a little an earnest young halfling with big bags under his eyes, who is got all sorts of miscellaneous, like it's almost like scale armor, except it's all little just bits and bobs of junk that he's got like affixed all around him.
Okay. I walk up to him and you.
Huh? What? Huh? Huh? What? What?
Where can I find Dennis?
I don't know who you're talking about.
The guy who won. Oh, what's the name of the gala?
The Absolution Ball.
The Absolution Ball last year.
So what I'm
Fell down the stairs. You know that guy.
well, maybe I do, maybe I don't.
I think you do.
Well, I don't know. Maybe if something helped me remember, if I was reminded of him in some way, and then you make intimidating finger gestures at him.
Yes.
Okay, so go ahead and
I
make your
let the claws
Yeah.
let the claws out.
sure. Go ahead and make your command roll.
Okay. Risky, controlled.
I think in this case we're still just doing gather information. You know what? Actually, I think make it a risky roll just because you're potentially intimidating
Okay.
someone. So it's like,
Risky standard.
yeah,
No bonus dice.
You want one?
Yeah, I got a 5.
Okay.
A 5 and a 4.
all right. So you can. So I think. so with a 5, this is for gather information. So it's like, oh, yes, right, like that Deneth. Hard to miss him. He, well, I, hmm, I think he's still at the bottom of number A3. He seems to like that pile for some reason, but like, what are you looking for him for? It's not like he's had it rough enough. Like, you don't need to mess with him.
Well, we're not going to. We
Oh.
found something that belongs to him. We're returning it.
What? What did he lose that you're returning?
Oh, my friend.
It's not
Nightshade.
your
Just saying.
business. We just want to know where he is because we have something that belongs to him.
Okay. I mean, like, you're right. It's none of my business, except that if I just find out that, like, like if someone went and beat him up or something, like, that would be, like, a bummer. So, like, fine.
he-
Yeah, whatever.
We're not going to beat him up. We said that.
Well, I
We want
don't.
to give him something that belongs to him.
You made scary fingers at me just to tell you.
I didn't, but I can.
Can I go now?
I'm
See ya.
sorry. I made scary fingers at you.
Make a sway roll.
It was
You get
such a
a bonus
sincere
for the big
I don't
apology.
have any sway.
Yeah.
He's got a bonus for the big teeth.
Risky, control,
Controlled.
standard.
Yeah.
No bonus dice.
Okay.
Aw.
Well, so one of the dice rolled was a 6, but unfortunately, because you have 0, it's taking the
0.
lower. So that's a 3. Um, so I think when you lean in and he's like, "I sorry, I made scary fingers," he's like, "Okay, I'm going," and he runs away.
Tried to apologize.
A3?
Yeah. So I think that you see that people have made just like little crude signs, just labeling the various piles, and so I don't think it's too difficult to navigate to, the one that's marked A3, and looking around there, you do see a man with a kind of like it seems to be a human, but he's got like a very stooped back, not like a hunched back, but just like really just like weary, like he barely has the strength to stand, but he's kind of just like very slowly, almost rote, just like sifting through stuff on one of those piles.
We will approach.
Mm-hmm.
Hi.
He basically kind of not violently, but sort of just like kind of cringes away from you and just sort of curls into a little ball.
Are you Dennis?
He curls tighter.
I'm going to nudge Primrose.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm gonna kind of go over and like crouch down. And it's like, we're not here to hurt you. I promise.
What do you want? I'm just looking in the pile. I don't need anything.
Oh, we just wanted to talk to you. That's all.
He opens up a little bit, and you see eye contact, and like from under his arm, and his eyes are just like he's barely focusing on you. He's just like haunted, bloodshot eyes.
You don't seem like you're doing so good.
I'm fine. I'm just looking through the pile. I don't need anything.
Well, no offense, but I don't think that's true.
Are there any other people around in this pile, or is he sort of just in here by himself?
I think the vibe you get here is that nobody wants to be around this guy.
Okay. Um,
Do we
I'm
have a
going.
little snack or something we can give him?
I mean, you don't. Yeah, I think you have some flexibility
Snack
here.
for
With,
this
Yeah.
guy.
yeah.
Here, eat
Anybody
this
got a
snack. Eat this watery apple.
He actually like cringes away again and says, "No, I don't need anything. I don't need anything."
We don't,
We don't.
listen.
We don't want anything.
We're not going to ask you for anything in return. We just want to talk. That's all. And maybe we can help you.
I don't need any help. I don't need anything.
Hmm.
But
You won't.
I guess you can
You won't
can
have to
talk
make a
if you want to.
contract.
I think Nedry briefly thinks about asking and then doesn't, and will touch lightly upon Deneth's mind,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
beginning with surface thoughts.
Sure. Let's get in a tune roll.
He's also been touched by the magic of this place.
Hmm.
Where's my screen? Too many screens. Is this a risky roll?
No. This is. I'd say it's controlled.
Okay.
Yeah.
Standard.
Yeah.
5.
Okay. Yeah. The most of the surface type thoughts that you get are pretty one for one with his body language and what he's actually said so far, which is basically just sort of he wants you to go away without making his situation worse. He thinks that's what will happen if he talks to you. He seems to be real, like, it's not a very reasoned or rational line of thinking. It's really almost along the lines of if you burned your hand touching the stove and now someone is shoving you at a stove. It's kind of like he has formed in his head a connection between talking to people and getting in trouble or in pain. So that's kind of what you're getting from surface level. Um,
In the piles
Mhm.
around him, I'm just going to sort of like bend down in front of him and like sort through some stuff. And I'm actually going to put a toolbox with the remains of a clockwork arachnid, like amid the stuff so that it's kind of hidden but not.
mm-hmm.
So that way, like, he will find it on his own later.
Oh, so you're specifically making it like you're not giving it to him; he's finding it.
Right.
Okay. So like not even something he'll find right away, but just like he'll find it later. Is that the idea?
Or maybe he'll like somebody will move and sort of maybe kick it and knock it
Mhm.
into view, and he'll be like, "Oh my gosh, this is the first time I ever found anything." Something like that.
Sure.
That maybe we're changing his luck.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I don't think you need to do a roll for that, but I mean, it doesn't sound like it's going to have any sort of an immediate effect.
Right.
So, okay, let me think. How about this? You can take the little snack bar in exchange for just talking to us for a minute. That's it. Promise, that's it.
There's always a catch. There's always a catch.
No catch. We know how things work down here, and that's not how we do it.
Make a
But
sway.
then it's a trade, right?
Make a sway roll.
Risky.
No, I think you're a controlled situation here. There's basically no risk to you. It's only a question of whether you succeed in getting him to talk to you or not.
You want help?
Nah.
He does not
Okay.
seem like someone who's going to pose much of a threat to you. Um, so yeah, with a five is your result. So what was it that you were offering as in
Um,
exchange for talking?
the just the little snack bar, kind of like, I
Okay.
guess it's an undersea protein bar,
Hmm.
in exchange for just talking
Help
to us
bar.
for a minute.
Okay. Well, he kind of looks up at you, and he kind of looks down at the thing, and he doesn't take it, but he just kind of looks at it there on the ground, and then back up, and he's kind of come out from being curled up a little bit, and he just looks haggard. He looks like a castaway. You know what I mean? Like someone who's been stuck on a desert island for a long time. You know, his clothes are not taken care of. His hair is unkempt, beard growth, and all of that sort of thing. Just 1,000 yard stare in the eyes, and he just says, "I don't have anything important to say. I don't. I don't know anything. I don't need anything."
Well, we just want to know about you, really.
Is he thinking anything different?
Um, he's mostly thinking, "I hope this will get them to go away."
Okay.
But I'll let you know though if you're continuing to sort of monitor
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
Um, it's like, why? What do you want to know about me?
Well, we heard you won the Absolution Gala, the game last year.
Um,
And
so just as a note, because this happens immediately for Indigo, the saying the words like absolution ball, you experience a very odd reaction where the sort of flash of memory he has at hearing those words feels like it is somehow simultaneously the best and the worst thing that ever happened to him. And you're not sure how to process that because it really does seem to be both at once. And he
I
kind
think
of
that
flinches.
in Primrose's mind, you hear the small voice of Indigo.
Be careful. That was the best and worst of his times.
He says, "Yeah, I did." So what? I don't have the crown.
I know that. That's not why we're here. We really just wanted some information about, like, well, a few things really. Um, if you don't mind, if you're okay with this, like, we're not trying to hurt you, I promise. And I know it's hard to believe that, just because, a kind of motion to everything, to the general. But we really do want to help. And I know things have been tough for you. We can tell that. And so I'm trying to think exactly where we want to start here with,
Sure.
like, questions.
He just,
Um,
I think he kind of settles down, and he still hasn't taken the meal bar, but he is like looking at it. He's sort of like sitting cross-legged, and he is sort of looking over at it, but he hasn't taken it yet.
If he can't tell you, I may be able to find out.
Everyone wants to know about the absolution ball, but I don't need anything. I don't know anything.
Is I'm I don't know that Nedry is probing his brain, right?
I mean, I think you know that that's something Nedry sometimes does, so you might intuit
But
it. But
I might intuit it.
I will allow you in the fiction to pick up on that if you feel like you would.
I'm gonna kind of look to Indigo curiously, and if he starts to get like tense again, I want to try to cast calm emotions on him so that he's a little freer.
Oh, on Deneth, you mean?
Yeah,
Okay.
but I don't want to do it like right off the bat,
Mm,
in case like it doesn't work. I don't want
sure.
to cause a problem. But like if he starts to get like really tense or upset again, so I'm just gonna kind of make that face at Indigo, like, can you talk in my brain? Tell me what's going on.
I think because this is a trick that we've kind of pulled before, catching Indigo's eye, there would be kind of that question of, "You in?"
Yeah.
And you would hear in your mind,
I can hear his thoughts, but they are few, scattered, and afraid. I have not
And-
gone deeper yet.
And then I will just let him know, like, if he starts to get panicked again,
Mm-hmm.
as you're probing deeper, if you can just give me a signal, I'll try
Sure.
to cast calm emotions.
Yeah.
So
So I think Nedry, as an experienced mind reader here, you are definitely picking up that the part of the pattern here is someone who has worked hard to train himself to not think about certain things.
yeah. And probably I imagine when he has his little mantra, "I don't need anything, I don't want anything,"
Mm-hmm.
that thought gets echoed around in his mind as a barrier that he reinforces.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
So
he have any-
which of our questions is going to be like what's the least intrusive?
Yeah. Well, so bear in mind, you got a 5, which means you're going to get some good answers. But I wanted to just role play how the actual conversation goes. So you're going to be able to get information here.
Yeah. I just feel
Cool.
bad for this guy, and
Oh,
I
sure.
don't want to like. I'm not trying to be an asshole.
No, yeah,
What
I
about-
get it.
Crazy Zaleen would be like, ask about the Titans, because that's what I want to know.
Mm.
But
Well,
I mean, that might be like a less intrusive approach to like start conversation, because it's not directly like, how did you fail and get your life ruined?
So, I guess one of the things that we would want to know, um, we heard that the crown allows you to understand the Titan's call. Is that correct?
He kind of frowns and sort of looks at you, like making sort of real eye contact for the first time, but with kind of a confused expression. Is just, that's what you want to know about?
Well, it's one of the things, but
I really want to know about it.
They call it the call. To me, it sounded like it was crying or screaming.
that was a fear that I had.
I thought that wearing the crown was going to be like fun, like it would feel good. And other people said it would, but I didn't. It didn't to me.
Really powerful magical items tend to be more than we bargain for.
Yeah, most of the time they're more of a curse than a blessing. Just
Uh,
ask our friend Indigo.
That definitely. So that is definitely a trigger where like you see him starting to just like curl into himself again. But if you go ahead and you do your calm emotions, let's get an attune roll to see how well that works. Because
Okay.
I think you're all intuiting that there's some stuff going on with this guy, and it's not necessarily just as simple as ordinary stress or depression.
Is it
This would,
risky?
yeah, I think this one
Okay.
is.
Standard
Mhm.
6.
Oh, there you go. So I think you see him, his face just start to crumple up, and he starts going back into a ball again. But then, as you weave your magic over him, he kind of just sort of relaxes again, sits up, kind of looks up and watches a couple of things drift down from the surface for a moment. His like a lot of the tension has gone out of his back and shoulders, and he just says, "What did you do? It's easier."
I calmed your emotions so that you could relax for a minute and let go of the burden that you're carrying.
I suppose for a minute it's better than nothing. A lot of people want that crown. They treat it like a big game. But it was everything I thought I wanted, and then I got it, and now, now it's worse than before. Wanting things just makes everything worse. That's why I try not to ever want anything anymore.
Did you ever think about leaving?
Where would I go?
Anywhere else? There are all kinds of amazing places, not just in this plane, but everywhere. And there are good people out there that won't necessarily take advantage of you or, you know, their own means.
Some people will want to just help you to help you, not because they want something in return.
In my experience, even when that's true, that doesn't mean that their help is going to help.
Why did you come here in the first place?
I just thought it sounded like it would be like an adventure. It would be a story I could tell so that people would like me. But I thought people liked me, like they played tricks on me. But I thought it was all fun. Yeah, like I had to do silly things, but everyone would laugh and people wanted to hang around. And and then I started to be a lot, but then I won the crown, and it canceled all the little deals, and I realized that everyone had would just been taking advantage of me and laughing at me. They weren't my friends. They weren't doing it for fun. They were just making fun of me. And then I realized that, like, if I went somewhere else, I would still be me. I came to this, like, one of the most, like, weird, magical places anywhere, and I was still just me.
Well, that's kind of all any of us are, really. I've always thought it's more important to like yourself and bring joy where you can.
One of the things that I want Nightshade to feel here, because it was her magic that kind of sort of unlocked this a bit, is that while certainly we can briefly in the meta acknowledge that there are lots of times that people deal with very real, like, depression and feel a lot of these sorts of things, right? In this case, it is very clear to you, Nightshade, having just sort of temporarily alleviated that there is more to this going on. It is sort of, it's the sort of thing where you imagine that if someone was walking a little too close to an edge, there was someone who magically nudged them a little further.
I was actually going to ask if there was a way that either Indigo or I could, or even Garland could figure out whether or not he was cursed. Like, I mean, would that be.
So I think that you think, based on the way it felt when you did the calm emotions, that while this guy might have some real psychological stuff related to all of this, you do believe that there is some sort of a magical effect on him that is exacerbating it and making it, like, as bad as it could possibly be.
Okay.
And something that you could certainly call a curse.
I would actually like to try to cast Remove Curse.
Okay.
To see if that has any kind of effect.
Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be an attune roll. However, this will be a desperate roll.
Okay.
I'm gonna help.
Desperate roll. I'll say with great effect, though.
You're helping?
Yes, I'm helping.
Yeah. So this one, I think, I mean, I guess we might as well just keep doing it the way we have been. So the presence of Garland here assisting with this. So here's the thing. I want you to just give us a little bit of description in the fiction of what it is that you're doing to prepare to cast the spell.
I'm actually going to reach out, and I'm sure he'll try to shy away a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe the fact that I cast Calm Emotions will.
Yeah, he's less, like, prone to, like, cringe and recoil now. He's a little bit more just sort of numb.
I'm going to put my palm in the center of his chest and start drawing to see if I can pull this dark energy out.
Mm-hmm.
5.
Okay, so with a 5 on a desperate roll, you do it, but there's a consequence. And in this case, the consequence is I'm going for the serious complication roll, which is that you are pulling this out, and then all of a sudden you have a flash in your mind, and you are seeing Deneth there at a big fancy party, look with a big goofy grin on his face, holding this ridiculous crown. It's like made of like seashells and pearls and weird little bits of coral, and it's like a Carmen Miranda fruit hat made of, ocean stuff. It's ridiculous. But he's holding it and he's got a big goofy grin and everybody in the room is cheering and he's just like looking around like, whoa, I can't believe it, right? And then you're watching, as he puts it on, and everyone is cheering, and then I kind of you watch as like you can see both at once here. You watch almost like you're watching two, like if you're watching a movie and then at a certain point it starts projecting two different movies over top of each other. And at first they're pretty similar, but then they start to, diverge more. And on one, you watch a fairly ordinary sort of party continue where like there was a big moment and now he's wearing a silly crown and everyone was cheering, but now there's the rest of the party to do, right? And sure, people are talking to him, they're excited, but it's also like the big moment is over, and it's pretty ordinary in that regard, right? Like it's pretty much exactly what you would expect. But then you also see at the same time, kind of superimposed on it, that now everyone is ignoring him and they won't look him in the eye, and they just kind of turn away and nobody wants to talk to him anymore. And you get a sense that that is being put on him. It's not really what happened exactly, but it's also not that different, right? It's almost just a different coloration of what was happening. And you hear whispering in your head of a woman's voice just saying, "Congratulations, you're the big winner. Everything should be better now, right? All your problems are solved, right? Well, if they're not, there must be something wrong with you." And you're just hearing this voice, and you are feeling as you pull, as you draw, it is drawing that second superimposed image away. But the major consequence here that you feel is that as you are pulling it out, and you're sort of experiencing this in your head as you're physically pulling this dark, massive energy away from his chest, all of you watch as tendrils of this dark energy suddenly start whipping out of the mass and start like lashing up your arm, and you feel a moment in your head, a sudden sense that someone else is in your head with you, and just hearing that same voice go, "Oh, hello. Who are you?"
Wouldn't you like to know?
So, this is a major consequence that you can choose to resist if you like.
I would like to try to
Can I-
resist it.
Can I help her resist it? or not?
I think resistance rolls, you cannot help with resistance rolls.
I got to remember how to roll a resistance
Yeah.
roll.
Well,
don't know.
actually, I think that's maybe not. So, for example, when it is a physical attack, your bodyguard thing is the thing where, like, if we can justify in the fiction how you would take a physical blow for someone, right? Then it would be you making the roll instead of her. But you can't help her with hers, right? Like, you could choose to take it instead, but you can't help her roll. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
What do I need to roll for that?
Yeah, so this
There's
is...
another
Oh.
thing going on here.
Mhm.
So what is Indigo seeing of what's going on here?
I-
Being inside the guy's mind and
I
also
think
seeing
you-
the external part?
I think that probably everyone saw kind of what I had described for Zaleen. Everyone kind of felt that, because both Garland and, well, maybe Primrose wouldn't. because you're not necessarily directly contributing here. But if we have Garland and Nightshade both working on drawing the magic out, and Indigo in kind of in his head, I think you all would have perceived that.
Okay. I think that because of his engagement in this magical moment,
Mm-hmm.
sounds kind of weird, but and kind of through the mind of Deneth, experiencing partially the memory of it that Deneth is experiencing, and probably also touching on the magic from the inside,
Mm-hmm.
Indigo is having a moment of fascination, but sensing the danger.
Mm-hmm.
Throws his magical energy into the mix to shut down this connection. So he's
Okay.
going to spend his mastermind trait to spend his special armor to avoid a consequence.
Okay. Nice. Nice. Okay. So I think in this case, what happens instead then is you definitely are. It's clear to you that there is someone responsible for this magical effect on him that did it on purpose, and that they are sensing the end of this effect. As you are pulling it out of him, they are attempting to react. And so they don't manage to get into your head in the way that I just described, because I think Nedry, in quick thinking, suddenly manages to erect barriers, magical barriers, that as this thing tries to send its energy tendrils up your arm to attach onto you, they're met only by, you know, telekinetic shields that resolve it and just kind of dissipate it, and you are able to finish pulling it out of this guy, and then it just kind of, like, there's a moment where it's almost just like this tiny little thundercloud of black energy in the water, like roiling around before it just kind of dissipates into nothing. And as you look up, Deneth is he's just shaking with sobs, like he's crying, but he looks up to you and he just says, "I don't know what you just did, but thank you. I don't understand what's happening to me, but I feel better. What just happened? What
We
did you
had
do?"
some- I pulled whatever dark energy she put inside you out with the help of my friends.
What?
Yo.
Who is she? Who's she? Someone put something inside me?
Yes. And I don't think it's wise for me to say who, but I think deep down somewhere you know exactly who did.
We had
And,
to.
and as he
We,
kind of, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all right. I can do
I
it
was
later.
just gonna say he kind of, he stares when you say you think I think you know who did it, and he kind of like stares into space for a second and then just says, "But she seemed so nice."
That's what I've heard. But I've also
Yeah.
heard much
Oh, God
worse.
bless.
Nope, go.
No. I just have a goofy thing to do, so please get all the good stuff out first.
No, I mean, I think that was kind of the button on the scene from what I'm concerned. But if we want to talk more, but I feel like what I'm getting to is you have gotten the information for the scene, so to speak, and we can
This is-
role play it more. But
This is just a goofy line that fits
yeah,
well, I think.
We had to do this. It's not just a name, it's something we chose as a job. You can refer to us as the Scare Stoppers.
A division of the frightened ears.
It's true.
he kind of looks around at you a little bit, like he's still kind of just not sure what to think. He's kind of disoriented and he's a little confused, but still, like, there's a little bit of a hopeful glint in his eye, and then he kind of looks down and says, Can I still have that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, would you like to come and work with us? And maybe we can find a way to help you get back to where you came from.
And he looks over at the pile and then back at you and says, "Well, I don't know. I might have found something good any day now." Uh,
You find.
yeah,
I think
I'm
you did
kidding.
find something good.
Yeah,
Or
no,
maybe we
yeah,
found you.
I am absolutely kidding. Yes, please get me out of here.
So we will take him home with us.
Yeah.
Collecting
Does he have any
strays.
Yep, that's
physical
us.
wounds?
He just looks like he hasn't been taking good care of himself. That's basically it.
But I mean, like, his hands are.
Not
Not
really.
torn up.
No, I
Okay.
mean, I think if you did like a little bit of light healing, he would probably be better. But it's more like you're treating a dehydration than cuts. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Okay. Dehydrated underwater.
Well,
That-
you know,
that's a new one for the medical
it's
books.
ocean
Oh.
water.
Yeah,
salt
that's
water.
true.
Yeah, you can't drink that stuff. It'll kill you.
And it does just raise questions about how that, you know, but then there's whole things. This is really true about like underwater rivers, like ocean rivers.
Yep.
Like this actually happens. Like you get
Yep.
currents of water with different degrees of salinity and density and temperature and all that stuff.
It's also
like-
the magic factor that really messes things up.
Yeah.
True. That also.
Magic.
Yeah. So I'm just saying that, like, yeah. So in any case, the point is, he is someone who has not been taking good care of himself, and he's not in good shape as a result. But he wasn't like injured in that way.
Okay.
But that said, you know, little healing magic seems like it would, perk him up a little bit. But in
Yeah.
any case, I think that's a good place to kind of draw close to that scene, though.
Okay.
Well, as we're walking away, I just want to be like, so what do you know about the Mistress of the Dark?
Have you heard of the Mistress of the Dark?
Like, do you
And
have any?
scene.
Do you have any reading material?
Of
Yeah.
Pull out a pen.
Yeah, and so I think that just it feels like kind of a natural moment to maybe draw our session to close for tonight. But yeah, you have absolutely helped one of the victims of the Lady Despair here, and you managed to avoid being explicitly detected. However, you're pretty sure she is aware that her spell ended. So
We will stuff him in the mansion so that she can protect his presence.
it's like one of those action figure carriers.
Yes.
You know, like the big Darth Vader head that you can put all the little Star Wars guys inside.
Anyway, we'll put him in the mini house, in the auction house, inside the bag, inside the mansion.
Yes.
Very nice.
And because we're in the Feywild, that magic will be fine. None of it
Yeah.
will like implode or anything.
Yeah.
And I'll introduce
So
him to
far,
Buster.
Yeah.
Oh no, trauma all over again.
All right. Well, so I think that next time we will probably drive a little bit more quickly towards getting to the point of doing the engagement roll. But if you had a little bit more stuff, because there was a couple of leads you hadn't really followed up on, and that's fine. You don't have to. But I think that will be the goal, is to get to the engagement roll sooner rather than later next time. But for now, remember to go through and answer your little XP questions. So here's a question: Do you all want to just kind of do that on your own, or do you like going through them on?
I kind of like going through to see where everybody
Yeah.
is.
Sure. Well, in that case, so let's start with Garland. Did you address a challenge with violence or coercion?
Yes,
Yeah.
I did.
So you can get XP for that. Did you express your beliefs, drives, heritage, or background?
Not really this time.
And I don't think you really struggled with issues from your vice or traumas.
No, not this time.
All right. So, for Nightshade, did you? So Nightshade did the desperate roll, right? So that was
Yes.
the one desperate roll, but and you addressed a challenge with knowledge or arcane power, expressed your beliefs, drives, heritage, or background.
Yes, definitely.
Struggled with issues from your vice or traumas.
A little bit.
It is always entirely up to you guys whether you believe you did or not.
I did almost walk into the kelp fields.
Yeah, yeah.
The kelp forest.
All right. And then Indigo, did you address a challenge with calculation or conspiracy?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probing the guy's mind and using that as a way to feed back to him
Sure.
was the intention anyway.
Yeah. Expressed your beliefs, drives, heritage, or background?
I mean, visited a library, but
Yeah.
that's
I mean, up to you. And then struggled with issues from your vice or traumas. Seemed like it wasn't so much a struggle this time.
no, it's going to be fun anyway. The
Yeah.
second trauma will be the hardest. Third one will be back to fun.
And
Why are
then
you
if you
playing
get
in
to 4,
traumas?
you get to retire the character.
Gotta ride that edge.
And then we have Primrose. Did you address a challenge with deception or influence?
I think so.
Yeah. You expressed your beliefs, drives, heritage, or background?
I feel like yes, especially in that last conversation with Dineth.
And then struggled with issues from your vice or traumas? No.
No.
Yeah. All right. So, as you take XP for those things, yes.
I have a question. It
Yeah.
says the playbook advancement. What happens if you fill that up?
Oh, it means that you can choose another playbook ability from your playbook.
Oh.
Yeah. So from your playbook, like there's the different things, like the different special abilities where you chose one, right? Like you can choose another one. That's an example of a playbook advancement. So like it's the two main things you can do with advancements are either that or you can like give yourself new skill dots for your various traits. All right. So, thank you for playing, and thank you everybody for listening and or watching. And I think we'll be back again next week to for August 1st. Can you believe it? After that, it turns out my titling of this episode as "It's Party Time" was a little presumptive.
I mean, the party did a lot of things.
Yeah. Party to the party of the first part, the party of the second part. Anyway, we'll be back next
Congrats,
time
right?
for more adventure on so many levels.
So many
So
So
many
many
levels.
blades and
and
interrogations and people that need
contracts.
help.
Yeah.
So many clauses.